Coming up on show 575, Tesla's battery experts describe a million-mile cell, investment into Nikola, and McDonald's investing in EV charging. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're listening in the world. Welcome to EV News Daily. Start of a brand new week today, Monday, 9th of September. Back in the routine, it seems like summer's certainly over. Everyone's back from holidays, work is in full swing. My name is Martyn Lee. I'm going through every EV story that I can find every day to save you time so that you don't have to do this. And I just bring you the essential EV news. A bit like myev.com are bringing you the essential things you need to buy and sell and learn about EVs. And if you're a dealer in the USA, there's a new dealer section of myev.com as well. If this year, or maybe next year in 2020, you'll be buying and selling an EV, your first stop is myev.com. Thank you to the new Patreon producers who fund this show and keep me going. Thank you, first of all, to Robert Grace. Now, Robert was a producer, increased his level of support to executive producer. Robert, I've popped your name in the show notes, along with all the other execs, and hello to Craig Cooper, who signed up today as an executive producer. So, Craig, your name is down there in the show notes as well. Hello to a new producer. Thank you, Kelly. I think it's Kelly OLAUSON or OLAUSON. I hope I got that right. If not, let me know. I'll do it again. Another new producer, James Rushworth, who signed up over the weekend. Thank you, James Rushworth. And finally, a new producer is HELMUT SELKER. HELMUT, thank you very, very much, wherever you are listening in the world and supporting this show. It means a lot. We get to spread the message, spread the word about EVs to people discovering electric cars and all kinds of electric vehicles. Hello to Peter Mooney, who signed up to show his support, and MATT ALRIDGE as well. Thank you very much for becoming patrons. This is a huge bit of news and a great way to start the week, an optimistic way to start the week. And this will send you to work, whatever you're doing today, with a bounce in your step and a smile on your face and an optimistic mood. Tesla's battery research partner is Jeff Dahn. Now, Jeff and his team over the weekend released a research paper in which they have described the million-mile cell, the battery cell that will go for 1 million miles. They've been working on pouch cells, just because it's easier to work on in a lab, by the way, not the cylindrical cells that you would get inside your car. Charles for Charged EVs magazine says the new lithium-ion battery cell features what is next-generation single-crystal cathodes, an NMC cathode, and a new type of electrolyte as well. All of this means that Jeff Dahn's team has extensively been testing these cells, and they now believe they could enable a battery pack to last over 1 million miles in an electric vehicle. This is a huge advance, says Charged EVs magazine. The new cells lasting 2 to 3 times longer than Tesla's current cells. And if the company can bring the new technology into production, it could radically change the economics of electric vehicles. Let me give you a direct quote from the research paper. And I can put a link to the research paper in the show notes if it's pretty hardcore going. But if you want to have a look, they say this. This situation may change with the proposed introduction of robo-taxis, long-haul electric trucks, and vehicle-to-grid applications. In the former, robo-taxis vehicles will be driving all day, much like a conventional taxi, and undergoing nearly 100% DOD cycling. In other words, going all the way till the battery's empty and charging all the way to the top. Long-haul trucks will almost certainly run in near 100% DOD situations. Cells in vehicles tethered to the grid will be racking up charge and discharge cycles even when the vehicle is not moving. Clearly, EVs destined for vehicle-to-grid applications, or robo-taxis, or long-haul trucking would favour a lithium-ion chemistry that could deliver many more charge and discharge cycles in a decade than an EV that was destined for a typical commuter driving, where high energy density to give the longest driving range for weekend trips might be emphasised. Electric buses represent another application where duty cycles approaching 100% DOD are used on a daily basis. End quote. So that is a chunk of the research paper. I'll pop a link in the show notes to Charged EVs. Let me give you there's so many things that this encompasses. If you let your mind start to run a little bit wild on this, the consequences are interesting for you and I to talk about. Well, firstly, they've published this paper and they've put it into the public domain. This is a bit like when Tesla put all of their patents in the public domain. This is not something that they are keeping locked away. So here's my first thought, and maybe this is me, maybe this is my human nature. But, and I'm not a particularly cynical person, by the way, but I'm naturally inclined to think, if this is what Tesla have published over the weekend, publicly, and made available the battery chemistry that they have been using with these particular cells, how old is this data? Because these battery cells, the ones that they have made available to everybody, have gone through extensive and rigorous testing, which means they've been around a while in Tesla's lab, which means to do all those years of testing, they haven't stood still. So what's the current state that we don't really know? And this isn't like I'm no conspiracy theorist, but I'm thinking, well, this is if they're publishing this publicly, what's actually going on? Which is that whole thing about skate to where the puck is going to be. Don't skate to where the puck is, because it'll have moved by the time you get there. So I think this is huge news to start digesting, but actually, they've already moved forward. But I've got no proof of that. That's just my gut feel. Also, let's factor in the fact that Tesla are going to start making their own cells. That is not confirmed at all. It's put together from many little bits of evidence, but when you look at all those little signs that we've got, even you go back to was it the Autonomy Day? It wasn't the Investor Day. It was the Autonomy Day where Elon and JB on stage were looking at each other and smiling and just couldn't disguise their body language when they were talking about cell production. I don't think it's any huge secret that Tesla have an eye on making their own cells. And they can now think about that because they have this technology. Also, if you have a car battery that'll do 1 million miles, enough charge and discharge cycles to do 1 million miles, depending on where you live. So here, for instance, we get pretty good summers, pretty rotten winters. Cars tend to, well, if you last 150, 250,000 miles, you've done okay. Now, I know there are hot parts of the world, sunny climates where cars never really get wet, they don't rust, and they can just carry on going and going. So I don't know what you feel an average life is for a car, but say it is 150,000 miles. Okay, you know what? Let's say it's 250,000 miles. And I think that is stretching it with with piston cars, with fossil gobblers. But let's say a car goes 250,000 miles. And I think that's going long. But anyway, you've still got another 750,000 miles worth of battery left in it. So long after your car is depreciated and the value has depreciated from the car to the point of which it's worthless and you change the car, however long it takes you to do 250,000 miles, could that be 5 or 10 years? You still have an asset within the car, the battery, which, even though the car is depreciated, you won't want to throw the battery away. That battery is still good for second life applications. Then it gets used on the grid. Or it gets used, if you think about it, if the battery is this good, in another car. But let's just presume that the battery gets taken out and it's used for storage. But this is done on a mega scale. This is done on EVs that are being made hopefully soon, and then in a few years' time, or maybe 5 years' time, there is an enormous storage resource added to planet Earth that is going to carry on going and going and going. Long after the car is gone, the battery still has pretty high value. If you buy an EV, that affects what your car is worth. The car might be worth nothing if it was a piston car, but actually still might be worth, 5 or 10 grand, simply because the battery is worth something. Also, it's good for anything that needs a increased battery density, like the Tesla Semi. So semi-trucks that need to do 500 miles, 750 miles. This new technology leap in terms of the density of the cells means that with something as big as a truck, you can put in a big battery and therefore it can go a very long way. But by inventing this technology that has greater density, what if you're just making it for a mainstream car? Then you need to decide, well, actually, this car could do, if it's a lightweight car, 750 miles with a big battery. But you know what? Let's put a smaller battery in. Let's make it a lightweight car. So rather than keeping the battery sizes that they are today in 2019, this technology allows you to maybe halve the battery size, still have what is a very usable range for a car, which, what do you think? I think that's 300 to 400 miles. I can't think why you would want to own a car that does more than 300 to 400 miles just for the one journey that you take a year. So then you can have a car with a much smaller battery, much lighter weight, much cheaper. The battery is the most expensive thing in an EV. So the car gets a lot cheaper, the battery gets a lot smaller, and you can still do a huge range. This is an enormous piece of news, and I wish that I understood more of it. I've had a look at the paper itself, and I've looked at all the commentary online today, and I don't think I've even digested 5% of what this could really mean. It is enormous news, and by making this information, this data, available to anyone else now around the world, hopefully it will stimulate a greater advancement in battery technology. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about, actually the big car show. Frankfurt is coming soon. If you, like me, have been watching Bjorn Nieland's videos online, he does a live stream as well. He's been driving the EQC to Frankfurt because he's going to the motor show. The countdown is running to not only that, but also the series production of the Volkswagen ID.3. It's going to start at the Zwickau plant in November. Currently, the last robots are being installed and the assembly line is now being commissioned. The ID.3 is the first model in a whole new generation of EVs from Volkswagen on a new platform that will be used across the group. Well, the ID.3 makes its world debut on September the 9th. Today, if you are listening to this podcast almost in real time at the IAA show in Frankfurt, the first vehicles to be delivered next summer. Because we were talking early 2020, I noticed that messaging has changed now. Summer is going to be the delivery of the ID.3. Volkswagen launching their biggest electric offensive, in fact, the biggest in the automotive industry worldwide. In the next 3 years alone, there'll be 33 models that are all electric and all based on this one platform. And this platform they've made is an all-electric platform. There'll be no piston cars being used on the MEB platform. At Zwickau, Volkswagen is converting the entire plant from what used to be 100% fossil gobblers to 100% EVs. The changeover to EVs is already started back in 2018. It'll be complete next year. And the body shop and the paint shop already done, ready for the ID.3. The first of 2 final assembly lines, they're now completed. And it's here that production of the ID.3 will start in November. Production will then be, step by step, ramped up. A total of 12 entirely new buildings are under construction at the plant, and the existing press shop alone has been extended and prepared with a €75 million investment for the ID.3. The Zwickau plant can produce all the key body parts from for any MEB car, self-contained from 2021. VW understandably take a real kicking online, and I have sympathy for that view where people say they make nothing but press releases, but I am inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt. And you look at all the money that's being invested. They're a public company, they can't lie about this. Yes, they did lie about certain things in the past. However, I do think that actually all of this money surely has to start paying off once they ramp up. Well, the US startup Nikola is next in the news today. They specialise in fuel cell trucks and, more recently, battery trucks. I noticed that Nikola used to be all about the fuel cell, and then increasingly recently they've been started off by saying, and batteries as well. And now batteries are taking more share of their story that they tell, their narrative. And I kind of wonder whether they're just backing away from fuel cell a little bit. I've got no evidence of that apart from my own feeling of reading and watching what's coming out of Nikola. They've announced that German companies Bosch and Hanwha have invested $230 million with at least $100 million each, says Electrive, coming a few days after the Iveco owner CNH Industrial became their main investor with a $250 million investment in Nikola. A joint venture for the development of trucks in Europe is being established with the parent company Iveco. Of course, Iveco, a legendary name in commercial vehicles. In the course of the series investment round, it was a Series D investment round actually, Nikola wants to earn a total of $1 billion. The cooperation with Bosch is nothing new. For years, Bosch has been an important part of Nikola's story for fuel cell and battery technology for their trucks. Bosch's investment confirms its commitment, they say, to the development of hydrogen technology and infrastructure, say Nikola. So they are still going down that route. Let's talk Mackie D's and McDonald's. I've noticed, actually, when I watch videos, things like Bjorn's videos, People often in Norway, in Sweden, places like that, they pull into McDonald's for a charge, and that's just not a thing here. Maybe it's a country-specific thing, but there aren't really many. None that I know of. I'm not going to say there are no charges at McDonald's, but I don't know of any. Personally, there must be some somewhere. And I've always thought it's kind of a useful place, because if you are pulling into a fast food, maybe you'll be there 15, 20 minutes. If you're not doing drive-through, you might be there 15, 20 minutes for a stop off with the kids or something. That's a useful amount of time to charge on a rapid charger. Well, in Sweden, McDonald's is creating a new charging network and catering for the growing number of EV drivers in Sweden. They're turning the classic golden arches, their restaurant signs, into signposts that let people know they can charge their cars there. Everybody looks out for the golden arches, and now you can see the sign that says, charge your car here. According to Ad Age, the company has charging stations at 55 restaurants in the country, making it the largest restaurant chain in EV charging. Ultimately, though, it wants to offer the service at every drive-through restaurant it has in Sweden, responding to a survey in which 48% of people they asked said it was difficult to find out where charging stations were located. McDonald's is now making them more prominent. It was a whole campaign created by an ad agency in Sweden, NordDDB. And the first signs have been installed by McDonald's at their restaurants in Mjölby and Munkendal. Probably got both of those wrong. In addition to the current price for charging, these are signs that look like, at petrol stations, they have the big illuminated signs of how much everything costs per litre or per gallon. The signs are a bit like that, actually, and it shows the current price of a Big Mac and the current price of charging. It's all in order to get your attention. I think it's a great idea. Two more stories. Talking of the Frankfurt Motor Show, and I'm sure now that it's kicking off, I'll be talking a lot about it this week. The Frankfurt Motor Show, the IAA show, Byton are there and will formally introduce the production version of their pure electric. It's an SUV. It's called the M-Byte. Tom for Inside EV says that the M-Byte will be available in two configurations: rear-wheel drive with 268 brake horsepower and an all-wheel drive with dual motors doing 470. Bosch is supplying Byton with the drive motors and the power electronics. The standard battery pack is 71 kilowatt hours. The larger pack is 95 kilowatt hours. Now, Byton had announced that the M-Byte will cost $45,000 equivalent when it launches in 2020. That was before any talk of tariffs on Chinese-made goods. It'll be interesting to see how the pricing pays out. The M-Byte will be available first in China later this year. It won't be available in the US or Europe until mid to late 2020. So we'll see what happens with the tariff trade wars and the pricing in that time. Just to remind you on what the Byton M-Byte is, do you ever see those pictures of the car with the screen that goes the entire length of the dashboard from all the way in front of the driver, all across the passenger's side? That's the M-Byte, okay? Final story, and this is a funny one. It looks like Elon Musk is going to have a pretty decent driver driving the Tesla Model S at the Nurburgring, if his words hold true this week, says Motor1.com. Last week, Elon Musk tweeted that Tesla will bring the Model S to the Nurburgring, the Nordschleife, to, in a way, I don't know, I guess to take the challenge to the Porsche Taycan. The racetrack hasn't been booked, though, according to a story in Road and Track, Race and Track. What's the American publication? According to them, the Nürburgring has no private test days booked next week, so they can't be going for any kind of record to try and beat the Porsche. However, there is an open press day, and an open car makers day, if you like, where the industry can go along and drive their cars. The public aren't. It's not a tourist day, but the industry can go along and use the circuit. Of course, I don't know if that means it's the full circuit, because normally on the public days it's a shorter version, and also that automakers aren't allowed to do record-setting attempts. They can't time the lap, if you were. Anyway, looks like in some way, shape or form, Tesla will get a Model S on the Nürburgring this week. And then Nico Rosberg, the Formula One world champion Nico Rosberg, who, since he retired from motor racing, has turned his hand to being a YouTuber and has got millions of fans, had millions of fans already, but these days he makes a ton of videos. He loves driving his Tesla. He owns a Tesla. He makes Tesla videos, and they are obviously wildly popular on YouTube. And so he tweeted Elon and said, "If you need a driver, I'm available." Elon replied back, offer accepted. And so it looks like Formula One driver Nico Rosberg will be driving the Model S around the Nurburgring. And this comes back to something I talked about on yesterday's podcast, if you haven't heard it, about how the other automakers are starting to ramp up their TV advertising and how Tesla still staunchly won't advertise. But why would you? When you have a CEO with 20 plus million Twitter followers who can put a tweet out and have another person with millions of followers, a Formula One world champion, reply to you and say, I'll drive the car. It's got the world talking about it without a penny spent. It's brilliant publicity. Whatever happens, and who really cares, to be honest, what happens? Because what are they going to do? Beat the Porsche, not beat the Porsche, try and do a record time? I don't know. What's the point of it? Anyway, does anybody really care? The point is, people are talking about it. Huge publicity, no money spent. Let's get on to question of the week this week. It's been set, as always, by myev.com, and actually this one comes courtesy of my friend Jill. Now, Jill Noel on Twitter asked this question, so I borrowed it. All right, blatantly stole it. Did you have a light bulb moment if you've switched to an EV? If you switched to an EV, did you have a light bulb moment? Similar to last week's question, but a bit different. Was there a light bulb moment when in your EV journey that you want to share with me? You can email hello@evnewsdaily.com, leave a comment on Facebook and YouTube, and we'll pass it on Sunday. I read out all of your comments on the show. So 251 patrons of the podcast now. Thank you very much to all the new names. You are added to the show notes, exec producers and above. 574 previous shows online. The new ones come first and free and automatically if you are a free subscriber. Make sure you do, and please spread the word. Please spread the word about EV News Daily to anyone who might enjoy being part of this little gang that we've got. Come and say hi on the socials by searching EV News Daily. Have a wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow, and remember, there is no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.